Remember the days when we ran around with our pinnacle weapons like Mountaintop and Recluse? Remember how powerful we were? Well, today we're going to try to recapture that feeling, because in this video, we're going to try to approximate every Sunset Pinnacle and Ritual weapon, minus Luna's Howl and REDRIX'S Claymore, to try to get as close as we can to wielding our old favorite weapons. Let's begin with the Forsaken Pinnacle weapons. First off, REDRIX'S Broadsword. If you're looking for a REDRIX'S Broadsword replacement, you don't have to search far. Just play Trials and get the Messenger or the Messenger Adept. You can get the exact REDRIX'S Broadsword curated roll on either of these weapons. And if you happen to get the Adept Messenger, you can even put on Adept mods to boost the stats a little bit more. Our second Forsaken Pinnacle weapon is the Not Forgotten Hand Cannon. To approximate Not Forgotten, pick up the Nation of Beasts Hand Cannon from the Last Wish raid. You can roll pretty close to the Not Forgotten, but instead of Not Forgotten's damage perk, you can roll either Rampage or Kill Clip to try to boost that damage in order to get 2 body, 1 head kills. Moving on to Season of the Forge with our first pinnacle weapon from this season, the Mountaintop. Unfortunately, we can't really get a Mountaintop replacement. Its perks are too unique for grenade launchers. But I will recommend the Godroll Ignition Code with Spike Grenade, Slide Shot, and Vorpal Weapon. This thing is very powerful and definitely a good replacement if you miss Mountaintop. Moving on to our second pinnacle weapon from Season of the Forge, the Loaded Question Fusion Rifle. Loaded Question's signature perk Reservoir Burst can be found on 3 currently usable fusion rifles. The first up is the Null Composure, which can be easily obtained by completing its quest. However, if you want to try to match the archetype more for Loaded Question, go into Nightfalls and get either the Plug 1 or Plug 1 Adept. Unfortunately, you can't get auto-loading holster on any of these, but Feeding Frenzy is a pretty good substitution. In Season of the Forge, we also got our first Gambit pinnacle weapon in the form of the Breakneck Auto Rifle. These days, the closest we can get to this is the 7th Seraph Carbine Auto Rifle. It can roll Rampage, and while it can't roll any perks that increase its firing rate, it can roll auto-loading holster, or 4th times the charm, which are pretty good substitutes. Moving on to Season of the Drifter, starting off with my personal favorite replacement, the Recluse. The Recluse was one of the most powerful weapons of its time, and these days, the closest we're going to get is the Stochastic Variable Submachine Gun. It can roll almost the exact same roll that the Recluse had, with the exception of Master of Arms, which is a unique perk to Recluse. However, instead, we can roll Multi-Kill Clip, which also increases damage after reloading after you get a kill. On the Vanguard side of things, in this season, we got probably one of the worst pinnacle weapons we've ever received in the game, the Oxygen SR3. To replace this scout rifle, all you have to do is hop into VOG and get either the Vision of Confluence or the Vision of Confluence Time Lost, which can both roll with Firefly, a good substitution for Oxygen's amped up Dragonfly. Also, if you get the Time Lost version of Vision of Confluence, you can get some nice stat boosts from masterworking it and putting an Adept mod on. Moving on to the Gambit weapon for Season of the Drifter, the 21% Delirium. Unfortunately, there are only 2 900 RPM viable machine guns at this point in the game, those being Shattered Cipher and Thermal Erosion. For this substitution, we're going to go for Shattered Cipher with the Rampage roll. And unfortunately, you cannot roll Overflow on any machine gun other than the 21% Delirium, but you can roll Slideways on the Shattered Cipher, which will add some rounds into the magazine after sliding, which is kind of like Overflow if you slide a lot. I don't know, man, this one's a real stretch. Moving on to Season of Opulence, and starting off with the Revoker. Probably the most interesting substitution of this video. The closest we're going to get to approximating Reversal of Fortune is the perk Mulligan, which can only roll on 3 sniper rifles. If you want to get that aggressive frame, just like the Revoker, your best bet is Occluded Finality from Iron Banner, which can roll Mulligan and Elemental Capacitor if you want increased handling. Your other 2 options are the Twilight Oath from the Dreaming City, or the Omniscient Eye from the Garden of Salvation raid. both of which can roll Snapshot Mulligan just like Revoker. However, unfortunately, they're rapid fire frames, which means they're not as great in the Crucible as they can't 2-tap Body Shot. But these are the closest approximations we're gonna get. For Vanguard for Season of Opulence, we got the Wendigo. And this one, I'll admit, is the biggest leap that we have to make in approximations here. In my opinion, the closest we're gonna get is the Interference 6 grenade launcher. Unfortunately, you can't roll blinding nades or explosive light on this grenade launcher. So, instead, for maximum one-hit damage, you can roll spike grenades and full court, which will increase the damage that you do when you're standing farther away from your target. Finally, for Season of Opulence, we have the Hush Bow from Gambit. The closest approximation we're going to get to Archer's Gambit, the main perk of Hush, is going to be Archer's Tempo, which can roll on the Accrued Redemption from the Garden of Salvation raid. Accrued Redemption cannot roll Opening Shot, however it can roll Rapid Hit, which is a nice substitution if you're looking for a Hush replacement. Moving on to Ritual Weapons, starting off with the Randy's Throwing Knife from Season of the Undying. This season we got a nice replacement for Randy's in the form of the Servant Leader. Servant Leader can roll Rapid Hit and Kill Clip, both perks on the Randy's Throwing Knife, and they're even in the same archetype of Scout Rifle. This is a good replacement, and I highly recommend grinding Gambit for it. The Vanguard Ritual Weapon for Season of the Undying was the EDGEWISE machine gun, and once again we're going to turn to the Shattered Cipher for a substitution. Shattered Cipher can roll Field Prep and Rampage, just like EDGEWISE. And while it can't roll the exact magazine perk, it can roll Flared Magwell, which is a good substitution in my opinion. Finally, for Season of the Undying, we have the Exit Strategy Submachine Gun from Gambit, with the Underdog Swashbuckler perks. Here I'm going to make two recommendations. First of all, if you grind the Dawning and you have a Cold Front with this exact roll, perfect. However, if you don't, the backup is a Borrowed Time submachine gun from Gambit with Feeding Frenzy and Swashbuckler. Feeding Frenzy is also a roll that Exit Strategy can have, so this is a nice substitution. Unfortunately, these are not the same archetype as Exit Strategy, and that is because Swashbuckler cannot roll on the 900 RPM submachine guns of today. Kicking off our final season of Ritual Weapons, we have the Komodo 4FR, which can roll No Distractions Box Breathing. If you're looking for a box breathing substitution, I recommend Tarantula with a firmly planted roll in the 3rd slot. However, if you're really going for that No Distractions perk, Corsair's Wrath with high impact reserves in the 4th slot is going to be your best substitution for this one. The Vanguard Ritual Weapon for Season of the Dawn was the BUZZARD Sidearm with 4th times the Charm and Swashbuckler. And unfortunately there's not really a good substitution for the sidearm, which doesn't really matter because it was kind of bad and we have much better sidearms these days. But that's beside the point. The only other 300 RPM sidearm that we have available to us today is the Keening from Crucible. And while it can't roll either of the perks that the Buzzard has, it can roll Subsistence Multi-Kill Clip. That's kind of like 4th times the Charm and a damage perk. I don't know guys, this one's a real stretch, I tried. Our final weapon for this video is the Python Shotgun from Gambit, which can roll with Overflow or Feeding Frenzy and 1-2 Punch. Now for this we're really just going to be looking at 1-2 Punch aggressive frame shotguns, since they can't really roll Overflow. In this case, we have 3 good substitutions, 2 of which come from the Vault of Glass raid in the form of Found Verdict and Found Verdict Time Lost, which can both roll with Rewind rounds, which is a pretty good substitution for Overflow, all things considered, and if you pick up the Time Lost version of Found Verdict, you can get that juicy stat boost from masterworking it. Your other option is a Sudden Death from Prophecy, which can roll with Grave Robber 1-2 Punch, one of the best perk combinations in the game in my opinion. Thank you for watching. Some final notes here. You'll notice that in the pictures of the weapons, I have tried to get as close of a roll to the original guns that I can, However, you could probably customize them more to your preference based on just Masterworks, mods, different barrel or magazine options, and the like. So please don't take this too seriously. I just wanted to make suggestions in case you miss your old Pinnacle weapons. If you do happen to enjoy this, then cool. I'm glad I could help. But I hope you have a good rest of your day, or a good night, depending on what time it is, and thank you for watching.